Another Panda Podium package. This is the Grow from Tavelo, their latest aero gravel bike. As you might have guessed from the size, this isn't my frame, but had this been available back then, I would probably have ordered it instead of my Quick Pro GR1. I first saw this frame on Instagram back in January, with photos of full builds already floating around. But it took over half a year to start shipping to regular customers. It's a similar story with the Sika X Aero GR. First revealed over a year ago, and as far as I know, people are still waiting on pre-orders. In the meantime, I've had a great season on my Quick Pro, so no regrets. Still, I want to see if I'm missing out on something. Also, I'm eyeing the upcoming Tavelo Arden for my 40mm project. So let's take a closer look. The main advantage of this frame over my Quick Pro is tire clearance. We've got 50mm in the back and 55mm in the front, and you can see how far they dropped the drive side chainstay to fit mountain bike tires in here. We've also got a threaded bottom bracket, in-frame storage, plenty of mounting points, and of course UDH. The geometry is very similar to my Quick Pro, which brings us to the first big issue. The seat angle is too slack. It's a little steeper on smaller sizes and then gets progressively worse for larger frames. Even with a zero offset seat post, you won't be able to get into a super progressive position on this frame. That's a design decision I simply cannot understand on a bike that is, quote, for riders who race gravel. I don't know a single person who would like to sit even further back on the bike. So this is completely against the trend, and that's from a brand that offers the Van Sheep seat post. Because of that issue, we ordered the zero offset option, and we were pretty confused when we received this. This isn't the seat post from the geometry sketch, nor is it the attack seat post from the Tavelo website. In emails, Tavelo confirmed multiple times that this is actually zero offset, but I am still not fully convinced. Apart from that, I like the 2-bolt setup, so at least your saddle doesn't slip if you have to slam it all the way forward. But the metal fitting doesn't make full contact with the carbon. It probably won't cause any issues, but I noticed. Seat post issues don't end here because it says 110mm minimum insertion and maximum for size S is 150mm. As you can see, 150mm is entirely impossible on this frame, so I have no idea where they got that number from. In reality, it only goes in 120mm. That means you have to cut the seat post, which renders the scale useless and leaves you with just 10mm of wiggle room to dial in your fit. You better cut it right on the first try. Now let's talk about something good, the paint job. Personally, I would have gone with the purple option because I thought the black looked boring in photos, but seeing it in person, it actually looks really premium. It's mostly a clear finish, letting the raw carbon fiber shine through. They only added a black base layer in a few spots, likely to hide seams or filler. One benefit of a clear coat is also that scratches and chips can be easily repaired, which is something to consider on a gravel bike. This is how you do a gloss black finish. Take note, Specialized. You don't get a chainstay protector, and you also don't get a mounting option for a front derailleur, so one by only. You do get gear mounts on the top tube and under the down tube. However, this specific bolt is not for mounting gear. It secures an internal divider in the storage compartment to keep your stuff from sliding down the frame. A weird part if you ask me, because at 19 grams it's surprisingly heavy and it's also not flush with the down tube. But it keeps this little zipper bag in place, in which you'll find a mini toolkit. The compartment lid is executed really well. There's soft rubber along the edges, the fitlock mechanism is super satisfying, and it doesn't rattle at all. The only issue I see is carb mix leaking into the latch. Speaking of stuff leaking into the frame, where does it come out again? Well, certainly not through the drain hole, because it's tiny and just like on my Quick Pro, it's not at the deepest point of the frame. On my Quick Pro, this really is an annoying issue that you have to keep in mind constantly. On the Grow, you can probably drain water through the enormous Di2 hole in the chainstay, but why not just put the drain hole in the correct spot to begin with? Let's get the weight out of the way. We've got 987 grams for the frame, 464 grams for the fork, 182 grams for the seat post, 80 grams for the headset, 57 grams for the axles, and 26 grams of small parts, which makes for a total of 1796 grams. I'd say that's decent for a gravel bike which might have to sustain some impacts. It feels really sturdy and you cannot dent the tubes like on my Windspace for example. And while I've got the axles here, they've got different thread pitch front and rear and also typos on the label. The bottom bracket is threaded BSA, which feels a bit outdated. It's not ideal for larger diameter dub spindles, so I would have preferred a T47, but for me this is not a deciding factor. The paint is masked out and this Cyber bottom bracket does go in with no issue at all. This specific bottom bracket could use a larger paint mask, but let's not nitpick here because there are other more severe issues. The headset bearings have their dimensions printed right on them, which is nice. The compression ring only fits into one of them, so unlike on the Quick Pro you can't accidentally mix up the top and bottom bearing, which is also nice. What's not so nice is how they sit in the frame. You can see the bearing seats have been reworked, there's some kind of filler there. Likely because they realized it was out of tolerance, even so the bearings sit very loosely. Mechanically it will probably be fine once compressed, but I've not yet seen so much play on another frame. This can definitely be done better. The fork comes with a standard 70mm flat mount and the A dimension is 23.5mm, meaning you can run 140 or 160mm rotors. This is industry standard and fine for most people, but as a heavier rider I really appreciate the 180mm option on my Quick Pro. The drive side dropout is blind for a clean look and there are no extra mounting points, which is pretty much expected on an aero bike. The only interesting detail is the slight offset on the steerer, but yeah, it's a fork. Would I recommend buying this frame? If you can live with the geometry, then yes. In some areas it's not as refined as my Quick Pro, but then again it's quite a bit cheaper. This frame will certainly appear on this channel again once it's built up, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that and see you in the next one.